the category of not saying no to Krishna, we have talked about uh, two kinds of people. The first was those who simply say no. So these are the people who are gross materialists, and they have no interest in spirituality. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about them. He describes them in 244, Bhogeshwarya Prasaktanam, that they are these people who are asakta, who are strongly invested in Bhoga Aishwarya, either in enjoying the senses or in acquiring material opulences. And these are the kind of people that are working on the conception of Ishwaraham, Aham Bhogi, Siddha Aham, Balvan Sukhi. This is from the 6th chapter, where they say that Ishwaraham, that I am God, and Aham Bhogi, that everything that is around me is for my enjoyment. And Siddha Aham Balvan Sukhi. Siddha means that I have all the mystic opulences. And Balvan, I am strong. And anything that comes to me, I have the strength to take care of it. And Sukhi is that I am responsible for my own happiness. And of course, the flip side is that in the material world, the happiness is chapal. It comes and it goes. So for such people, while there is happiness, then they are in this understanding of their own supremacy, their own sense of control. And when things don't go their way, if there is unhappiness, then they react either by blaming others or by not being able to cope with it. And what is recommended for such persons? What Krishna says, that the problem with such persons is that they lack Atma Tattva. So Atma is a word that can mean different things, and it is applicable in all the variations of the meanings. Atma means self. So they don't understand themselves, which means that they think they are the body. Atma also means the mind, which means that they don't understand the mind. They consider the mind to be the self. So when the mind says do something, they take it as a instruction and follow it. And Atma also means Paramatma, Krishna. So they lack all these conceptions. They lack the conception of their own understanding, the distinction between themselves and the mind, and ultimately they lack the understanding of the position of Krishna. So what is the solution that is recommended for them? So because the cause of this saying no to Krishna is lack of tattva gyan, is the lack of knowledge, then the solution is to develop some level of understanding. It does not mean that the person becomes an expert in the scriptures. It does not mean that the person begins to know everything about everything. But the journey begins with Atato Brahma Jigyasa. In the Vedanta Sutra, Srila Vyasadeva makes this point, that unless the person begins to have jigyasa, inquiry in the Brahma. So Brahma means everything that is not material, everything that is not empirical. So the human form of life begins with Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Let us now inquire into the nature of the Absolute, which is the nature of the spirit, Am I the body or am I the soul? Is there a God? What is my relationship with the Supreme Personality? And at least in the current day and age, there are many opportunities for one to get these inquiries addressed. So earlier on, the only way was to take shelter of a guru, stay in the hermitage, and be instructed about it, which was the process in the varnashram system. But now there are many avenues. The books are printed and distributed widely. Internet is the source of lot of information, misinformation also, but information there. And there are temples which are like spiritual sanctuaries. There one can go and inquire. So that was the first kind of people we discussed last week. The second category was those who say no to yes to Krishna. So these are the kinds of people who take to some form of spirituality, but not to Krishna consciousness. So they may have faith in the demigods, they may have faith in some aspects of what is paranormal, but not have faith in Krishna. So essentially the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita is either misinterpreted or denied by them. And Krishna speaks about them in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Namam dushkritano muda prapadyante naradamada. He says 4 kinds of people will not surrender to me. Those whose intelligence has been stolen, those who are sinful, those who are overly materialistic. So what is the reason that a category of people will accept the presence of something spiritual, something beyond matter, but will not accept the notion of a singular personality of Godhead? You can call by any name, Krishna or some other name, Vishnu, Narayan, but they refuse to accept this notion that there is a singular God. Sometimes they will say that everybody is God. Sometimes they will say nature is God. Or sometimes they will say that there are multiple varieties of gods. Like Lord Shiva is God, Durga Devi is God, Ganesh is God, Kartik is God. So there are 330 million. In the Vedas, they say there are 330 million demigods, and they say they are all different varieties of God. So one reason is because of a strong attachment to piety. So in the previous category, the people lacked this notion of piety, which is why they said no to spirituality. In this category, it's the opposite. That people have a strong notion of piety, but the piety that they understand is for material enjoyment. So for them, piety translates to, may I have good health, I have a lot of wealth, my family should be happy, there should be no trials and tribulations, may my enemies all be vanquished. So with that notion, they pray to those who can reciprocate by giving material benefits. And that's the position of the devas. That one can worship different devas for different material benefits. One worships Lord Ganesh for Vigna Vinashan, that may all the obstacles be vanquished. One worships Durga Devi for opulence, that she is the proprietor of the material world. All the material world is under the supervision of Durga Devi. So, I am living in your kingdom. If I worship you, then I live a prosperous life. So, in this way, they worship different devas. Another reason also is because of Tattva Vibrama, that they simply don't know. It is very similar to the lack of Atmagyan. Tattva Vibrama is a little bit more specific. That so either they have not been explained or they have not accepted the position of Krishna. So for instance, if you read the Bhagavad Gita translation and commentary by Sripad Sankaracharya, his conclusion is that Krishna is not God. So what does he conclude with? That you are God. Krishna is not God. Similarly, there are other commentators who have commented on the Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures, coming up to different conclusion. If you read the Devi Puran, then the Devi Puran comes to the conclusion that Durga Devi is the personality of Godhead. That Brahma, Vishnu and Lord Shiv, they are all dependent on her for their sustenance. So when one reads these varieties of scriptures, now at least the Devi Puran is a bona fide scripture. It's not that it is misinterpreted, but it is presented in a certain context. That if you are looking to make your material existence prosperous, then Durga Devi is the absolute personality that you should go to. Because Krishna may not necessarily give you material opulence. He may, if he feels or if you want it. But really speaking, Krishna is famous for giving you what you need and not what you want. So he gives you that which is for your ultimate benefit. But then there are individuals, because of their own swabhav, their own propensities, they are invested in different notions. And according to that notion, they develop faith in a particular kind of scripture. There are part of the Vedas that talk about black magic. There are part of the other Veda that talk about how to worship ghosts and spirits and thus get power out of them. It's Vedic, it's bona fide. It's meant for people who are in the mode of tamas, ignorance. So there are people who actually do that. They will worship ghosts, they will worship spirits, they get some kind of siddhis out of it. But ultimately, it is all limited and it is something that is still not going to help you escape the cycle of birth and death. So what should they do? So of course, because one of the root of their conception is Tattva Vibrama. The recommendation again is to read the scriptures more scrutinizingly. And the recommendation also is, if possible, get the association of devotees, Vaishnavas. So there is only so much that you can get from reading. Prabhupada would say that you can't become a scientist or an engineer or a doctor by reading books. The books may help you become qualified to start in that profession. But when you actually become expert in that profession, it is only by training under somebody who already has acquired that skill. That's when Gyan becomes Vigyan. Knowledge becomes experiential knowledge. So one may read, and the Vedas by nature are cryptic and come to different conclusions. But when one is in the association of a devotee who is connected in the parampara, then those confusions will get automatically cleared. Now we'll talk about the third category. So the first category was just say no. The second category was say no to yes to Krishna. The third category is no while saying yes to Krishna. So no while saying yes to Krishna, these are, and we can personally relate to this category. So these are people who are aspiring spiritualists. These are people who have taken to devotional life. So they have said yes to Krishna. But while saying yes, they are saying no. So while they are taking to the process of making spiritual advancement, they're also doing activities or developing conceptions that is harmful for one's spiritual life. So Krishna, he talks about them again in the 7th chapter, Chaturvida Bhajante Mam. He talks about that there are 4 kinds of people who worship me with mixed devotion. So these categories are called Mishra bhaktas, because their devotion to Krishna is mixed with material desires. So they will go to Krishna, they will give obeisances to Krishna, and then they will say, Krishna, please give me money. And in return of that, I will give you $11 as donation. So they are going to the right place. Now, even it's not that they should not ask from Krishna. So Prabhupada would say that if one understands that Krishna is your father, then as a son, where will you go for anything? So the son goes to the father for everything. If he is hurt, he'll go to the father, I'm hurt. If somebody beats him up, he goes to the father, that this person beat me up, take care of it. If he wants to study more, he goes to the father. Can you explain something more to me? But the root cause that he's going to the father is because he has complete faith in the father. Everything else is a manifestation of it. Everything else is secondary. So this is not that category of people. This is those category of people that will only go to the father when they need something. So when there is some kinds of adversity, or when there is some kind of aspiration, so then they go and then they say, please, Krishna, do this for me, do that for me. Prabhupada would say this is looking upon Krishna as an order supplier. That you go to Krishna and then you have your laundry list, that you go to the restaurant and you order that I would like 1 dosa, 1 sambar, 2 idlis, and then the supplier will get it to you. So you go to Krishna and then you say, take care of my health, take care of my wife's health, take care of my job, take care of my child's education. Here's $11 in return. So this is looking upon Krishna as an order supplier. So this brings us to an interesting point, that what should be one's relationship with Krishna? What is bhakti then? Because if one is executing bhakti, and in the process of execution is performing activities that is slowing bhakti, then it is important to understand what is and what is not devotional service. So in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami, he explains, he talks about Bhakti and he gives a definition of Bhakti. Anibhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhi navratam anukulena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttamam. So he gives 5 characteristics of Bhakti. 3 primary and 2 secondary. So the 3 primary characteristics are that Bhakti is an active engagement. So Bhakti is not a state of being but a state of doing. So sometimes people will say that I'm a big devotee of Krishna. And what does that mean? Nothing. It just means that I'm a big devotee of Krishna. Or in my heart, I have a lot of love for Krishna. What does that mean? Nothing. Right? So Prabhupada will give the example of a newly married couple. And the husband comes to the wife and says, I have a lot of love for you. So I said, that's good. Where's your salary? No money for you. And then the wife says, I have a lot of love for you. And the husband says, where is my prasadam? She says, no prasadam for you. So, and this is more in a humorous note, but the point that is made is that love cannot exist in a vacuum. It is manifested as service. So that is why the first characteristic of Bhakti is that it is an active engagement. Prabhupada translated Bhakti to devotional service. He didn't translate it devotion. So he emphasized on the word service. Devotional service. This is service done in the mode of devotion. And of course there are many ways to serve. You can serve the deity. You can serve the holy name by chanting. You can serve the devotees. You can serve the temple. You can serve by donation. So there are many ways that Krishna can accept service, but there has to be an active engagement. Second characteristic is that Krishna knew that it should be directed towards Krishna. So one may be doing service and saying that service to mankind is service to God. But that is not true. Service to God is service to mankind. Or one might say that I'm serving my family and thus I'm serving God. That is also not true. So God is not a part of humanity. God is not part of your family. And some people will say, I'm serving my senses. That is my service to God. Or I'm serving my mind. That is my service to God. But Rupa Goswami says that Bhakti has to be directed towards Krishna and Krishna only. And no one else. Not to Shiva, not to Indra, not to Brahma, not to Ganesh, not to your senses, not to your wife, not to your country. It has to be directed towards Krishna and Krishna only. And of course, when he talks about Krishna, he talks about Krishna including all his expansions and incarnations. So whether it is Krishna, or whether it is Lord Ram, or Lord Narsingadev, or Vamandev, or so many incarnations of Krishna, so they are all on the same platform, Vishnu Tattva. Lord Vishnu, they are all on the same platform. Third characteristics that he says is that it should be favorable. So we have the example of Kamsa, who was doing a lot of service for Krishna. So Krishna, he liked this sport of killing demons. That was one of Krishna's favorite activities. When he would go around Vrindavan, Kamsa would send a demon, Krishna would kill it, and then everybody would be like Jai Krishna, Jai Krishna. Krishna would be in this mood of Viryaras, in this mood of chivalry. And this demon, he would wait for more demons for Kamsa to come. So Kamsa was serving Krishna. He was making Krishna happy. But that was not his intention. So that is why it is not considered to be bhakti. Bhakti is that one is deliberately in a mood of deliberation, wanting to do something favorable for Krishna. Not accidentally or not as a byproduct. But one should think that I am doing this for the pleasure of Krishna and his devotees. So these are the three primary characteristics. Two secondary characteristics is anyabilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam, that it should be free from any other desires. Abhilash means other desires, anyabilashita shunyam. And specifically jnana karmadi anavritam, that it should be free from the mixture of knowledge and pious activities. So one should not execute bhakti thinking that it is piety, because one executes piety for material benefits. One should not execute bhakti thinking that let me get elevated to a heavenly planet, let me go to Indralok or Brahmalok. That's not bhakti. One should not execute bhakti to get material benefits, to get knowledge, to get siddhis. So while these do not so these are the two things that will convert Shuddha Bhakti to Mishra Bhakti, which is what this category is about. So these people are devotees. So they are saying no while saying yes to Krishna. So the fact that they have said yes to Krishna makes them a devotee. They have already ticked off the three primary considerations. They accept Krishna as God. They actively serve Krishna in a way that is favorable to Krishna. The only thing is that they still have material desires. So they still have desires for opulence or different kinds of material gains. So that is why it comes in the category of bhakti, but it is not Shuddha Bhakti, it is Mishra Bhakti. The other kind of people in this category are those who are committing offenses while they are executing bhakti. So just like when you do something, there is a right way to do it, and then there is a wrong way to do it. So when one is executing bhakti, there are injunctions and prohibitions. So some of the prohibitions are minor, like entering the temple without making a sound, or not offering obeisances to the deities. So minor offenses that may have a slight effect on your bhakti. And then there are major offenses also, like Vaishnava Aprat, offending another Vaishnava, big offense. Or Guru Aprat, offending the Guru, big offense. Or Nam Aprat, that committing offenses against the holy name, very big offense. Now, while these offenses, except for Vaishnava Aprat has the capability of destroying bhakti. But the other offenses will diminish your bhakti. They will slow your progress. They will take away the sweetness of bhakti. So they are in the category of putting a person in the state of Mishra Bhakta as opposed to Shuddha Bhakta. So what is the recommendation for them? So the strongest recommendation for such people is to take shelter of sadhana Vaidhi Bhakti. So when we start to execute devotional service, it is presented in terms of rules and regulations. Some of them are important, some of them are good to have. Good to rise early in the morning. Good to take a bath every day. Good to give obeisances to the deities. So these are good to have. And some of them are very important. Chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day. Following the 4 regulative principles. Taking shelter of a bona fide guru. Aspiring to serve Vaishnavas. Doing some form of deity worship. So these are things that are very powerful. And when one commits to following the do's and the don'ts, then implicitly what one is doing is protecting themselves from these offenses. Because ultimately these offenses come because of the flight of the mind. That you're doing your bhakti, executing your devotional service, and then one day your mind says that today you need a break. Today do something else. Go to a bar, or a friend calls you and says today let's do something different, and the mind says it's fine. You've been doing this for a while. A little bit here and there is fine. But then it becomes a downward spiral. So when one practices sadhana Vaidhi bhakti, then it is bhakti that is followed externally. The submission is not because of a natural taste to bhakti, but an intellectual commitment to the potency of bhakti. So the mind understands that it is important to make devotional advancements. The heart does not fully go there. But one takes shelter of the commitment in the mind. It's like a student who's preparing for exam, and then the heart is saying that you have been studying too hard, take a break, play with the friends, and the mind says no. This exam is important, studying is important, your career depends on it, etc., etc. And the person pushes aside the disturbances that are there in the heart and externally follows. It's not that the person is enjoying studying. It's not that the person is saying that, okay, let me read more. Maybe there are some, but most of us did not have that experience. That when we were studying, we didn't have that experience that we were enthusiastically looking forward that we have a new book to study and we have a new exam to give and a new paper to write. But the reason we did it was because we were convinced that it is something that is beneficial for us in the long run. So because our mind was convinced, we also developed the conviction in the heart. So sadhana Vaidhi bhakti is the strongest protection that we can get. The fourth category, which is a slightly exclusive category, is saying no after saying yes to Krishna. So the first was simply saying no to Krishna. The second was saying no to yes to Krishna. The third was saying no while saying yes to Krishna. And the fourth is saying no after having said to Krishna. So this is a like I said, in a fairly exclusive category of perfected devotees who fall down. So these are exalted devotees who had perfected their bhakti, and because of various reasons, they deviate. And there are some examples that are given. Sometimes we see in the Puranas we see that exalted devotees of Krishna, they do something that is bewildering. And then because of that, they suffer the consequences. So the reason for this is what is known as Bhakti otha, anarthas. That sometimes because of the process of bhakti, anarthas appear in the heart. So what kind of anarthas are this? This is one having pride in their bhakti. That look at me, I am such an exalted devotee of Krishna. Or developing contempt for others. So you look at somebody else and the person is sitting and sometimes even though we are not perfected devotees, but we do get into that mood. Sometimes we'll see in a restaurant the person next to us is eating a steak and we see that poor guy, he's going to hell. He's committing so many, and then you become judgmental about it. Or even within our family, somebody is following Krishna consciousness, somebody is not, and then we become judgmental. We say you're a materialist, all you're doing is praying for material benefits, you're the lowest rung of spiritualists, so we become judgmental like that. But this is the category of people who had actually perfected their bhakti. So when one becomes advanced in bhakti, then automatically three things come to the person: puja, labh, and pratishtha. So the person becomes worshipable. Actually, a person who is advanced in devotion service is worshipable even by the demigods. And we see empirical evidence also that a lot of these famous godmen, they started off as sincere devotees. That is how they got this ability to attract people, because Krishna is all attractive, and because they were carrying Krishna in their heart, they were able to attract people. But then they started becoming offensive. So they started considering the devotion that was directed towards Krishna as their own right. So when people would give obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, in his mind he would give obeisances to his Guru Maharaj. When people would glorify Prabhupada, Prabhupada would say all glories to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because he wanted to make sure that he does not get contaminated by this pride that comes out of puja. Then the second is labh, that an advanced devotee, he becomes materially opulent. So labh is gain. So because this is the material world, when people become enamored and becoming established in bhakti, one automatically attracts the mind and the hearts of other people. So how do they reciprocate? They reciprocate by charity. Because they are attracted to the person, they give in charity. But some people will keep this charity for themselves. So the gain becomes personal gain, as opposed to taking the charity and using it in the service of Krishna and other devotees. And the third is pratishtha, which is fame. That advanced devotees become famous. Srila Prabhupada was famous across all the continents, in all the countries. He would go, he would get invited to speak on the television and the radio, and the airports would make special concessions for him. He met so many world leaders. So one becomes pratisht, famous. But then the person begins to think that I am famous. So because of this contamination, the person becomes becomes the bhakti becomes impinged. So like in the Bhagavatam we see Jai Vijay, pure devotees of Lord Vishnu. But they were proud of their position, that nobody can see Lord Vishnu unless we give them permission. What was their position? They were servants of Lord Vishnu. They were supposed to serve Lord Vishnu and the devotees. But the conception that they had was that we are the ones who control audience to Lord Vishnu. So they turned away Lakshmi Devi, they turned away the 4 Kumars, and then they suffered because of that. So what should they do? So for devotees of this caliber, Krishna comes and protects. Because Krishna has already accepted them as his priya, as his dear. And he understands there is fallibility. He understands that there is the pushings of the material world. But Krishna, he says to Arjuna that my devotees will never perish, because he himself will come and protect such devotees. And of course, if a devotee sees these contaminations coming within himself, then the best way to counteract this is to increase one's service. If one thinks that I am great, then the best way to counteract that conception of greatness is to take as humble a service as possible. In Australia, in one of the temples, there's a sannyasi, very, very famous for his service to Prabhupada. Very strong preacher, had so many disciples. And then because of whatever reason, he left. He fell down, he left. And then after some point he realized that he had made a mistake. So what he would do was, he was the kind of a person that if people knew that he was coming, literally thousands of people would flock to hear him speak and to hear his kirtan. So what did he do? He took the service of cleaning the bathrooms. He took the service of cleaning the kitchen, the pots and the pans over there. And he did that for a long time. Not just that let me do it to show I'm so humble, but he actually developed this strong mood of service. Because by Krishna's mercy, he recognized the fact that, yes, there was maybe puja, la, pratishtha, something did not sit well with me, which bewildered me. And the best way to counteract is to increase my service. So just like it is said that you cannot be proud while you're being humble. The two things don't go well with one another. You cannot insult somebody while you're glorifying the person. The two things don't go well together. So what is the best way of protecting yourself from Vaishnava Pran? Is to serve the Vaishnava and glorify the Vaishnava. Right? So just saying that I will not do Vaishnava Pran is not sufficient, because that is the absence of a negative thing. But the best way to protect is to replace it by a positive thing. So if one is scared of Vaishnava Pran, one should take to Vaishnava Seva. If one is scared of Vaishnava Ninda, then one should take to the glorification of the devotees in a sincere mood, but one should cultivate that mood. So these are the four aspects of not saying no to Krishna. So I'm going to stop over here and see if we have any comments or any discussions on this.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. While actually, thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very nice explanation, and it, as you are explaining, it is so evident that even we do not carry the understanding of bhakti also, because it is so definition anyavlashta sunyam words, so it is like it. And my question is, like, you mentioned that, like, if somebody without, the aparadas will diminish one's bhakti to Mishra bhakti. So, can we say that if one performs bhakti without doing any offenses, is he doing Shraddha bhakti?
It depends on the nature. It depends on the nature of the offense. So if the offense is of the kind that is contaminating bhakti with material desires, then then the person is performing Mishra bhakti. But there are other category of offenses also that don't necessarily change the nature of bhakti. So for instance, seva aparadha. So you have deity in your house, and you're a little you neglect their worship. You don't feed the deities. It does not mean that you're a Mishra bhakta. It just means that your conviction is wavering there, right? So it depends on the nature of the offenses that you commit.
Okay. So, if I am asking, like, if somebody does bhakti without any offenses, so is that such a person is, can we say, in a state of Shuddha bhakti? Because normally day in day out we do offenses. So in our case, like, we can't even think of doing without offenses. But in general, as a definition, in pure devotees case, there will not be any offenses.
You're right. In a pure devotee case, there will not be any offenses, but the absence of offense does not necessarily indicate pure devotion. So, what indicates pure devotion is being properly situated in the conception of bhakti. And Rupa Goswami gives the 5 criteria, and that can be expanded. But that is what establishes the platform of Shuddha Bhakti. One is performing bhakti without any material desires, without any aspirations for getting any kind of intellectual or material dividends out of the process. Then that is Shuddha Bhakti. Now, even though the process may be executing Shuddha Bhakti, he may be committing offenses that may slow the progress of bhakti. So the person may be committing seva aparadha, he may be committing different kind of major or minor offenses. But the general understanding is that when one reaches the stage of executing pure bhakti, then the propensity to commit offenses has also been already rectified. Because what is the source of offenses? The source of offenses is anarthas, right? So anarthas are the material contaminations, and these material contaminations they generally manifest themselves in terms of these extraneous desires, right? So if a person says, I'm doing Shuddha Bhakti, then the understanding is that he has already become nivrit of his anarthas. So the possibility of offenses has diminished considerably. But free will is still there. The person can do whatever he wants there, right? So one of the things that is very intrinsic to the jiva is his free will, which means that he can decide to do whatever he wants. Which is why we see that even perfected devotees, like how much more perfect can you become, like Jay Vijay, right? They are personal associates of Lord Narayan. They're having face-to-face interaction with Lord Narayan and Lakshmi Devi. How much more perfect can you become? But they also can commit offenses. So saying that a person at this stage it is impossible to commit offenses is like saying that this person no longer has any free will, which is not going to happen.
I have a question. So, what category of bhakti would you put a person's bhakti where that person is involved in bhakti not just with Krishna but other forms of God, Krishna like Vishnu or Shiva or Ganesh? What kind of bhakti would that be called? Would that be pure devotion, or it would be Mishra bhakti, or what category of bhakti would that be called?
So that is not bhakti, right? Because the primary consideration of bhakti is that it should be exclusively towards Krishna. So there are two aspects of this. So there are some people who will worship Krishna. They will also worship the demigods, but they will worship the demigods with the understanding that they are great personalities, but they are drawing their sustenance from Krishna. So that is Mishra Bhakti, because it is acknowledging Krishna's position as the personality of Godhead, acknowledging the position of the devas as exalted devotees of Krishna, and then worshipping them. So it is bhakti, it's Mishra Bhakti, because most of the time when people also worship the demigods, they worship them for material desires. But if a person is worshipping Krishna and Shiva and Ganesh and Durga Devi, saying that they're all gods, so there is no bhakti over there. Prabhupada would actually, this is Prabhupada's word, he would say this is prostitution. So the nature of a prostitute is that she will go to anybody who gives her money. So the nature of a person who is going to anybody saying that I have some obstacles in my business, Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh Deva, right? I need to have good health, then Jai Mata Ki, Jai Mata Ki, Jai Mata Ki, right? So depending on what your need is, you're going to the person only to get succor for that need, only to get help for that need. There's no faith, there's no love, there's no relationship over there. It's just a business over there. So that is violating the basis tenet of bhakti, that Krishna nu Sheelanam, that it has to be exclusively directed towards Krishna. And that understanding comes by following the conclusions of the scriptures and the previous acharyas.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. The question is like, we are, like, at least for my case, is Mishra Bhakti right now. And looks like whatever I see, I don't see anywhere that I will ever have Shuddha Bhakti, because maybe it's because of the family and everything together. How do we come out from this mixed mode? Like, or by doing itself will go, or you need to take a special effort?
So yes, Prabhu, I think both your realizations are well. Your first realization is not correct. Even though you are doing Mishra Bhakti, I can guarantee you that you will reach a stage of Shuddha Bhakti sooner or later. How to reach that stage is through the process of continuing to practice this sadhana Vedi bhakti. So the process of bhakti is purifying in itself. So we have, or may or may not, but there are guests sometimes that come to your house and they simply don't leave. Then they make place for themselves in your house. Krishna is like that. He once comes into your heart, he does not leave. He's a very tenacious guest. So you have to work very hard to kick him out of your heart. And not only does he stay in your heart, he makes space for himself. So gradually and gradually, he will drive away everything that is extraneous to the process of devotion. So Srila Prabhupada would say that in order to perfect bhakti, there is only one thing that you need to do. And he gave the example of in order for a child or a son to inherit the fortune of the father, there is only one thing that he needs to do, and that is stay alive. Because the fact that he is the child of that father already makes him, it is his birthright to get the wealth of the father. It is his right. Nobody can take it from him. The only thing that can take it from him is if he dies. No son, no wealth. So as long as one is staying alive in one's bhakti, then the fact that you will get the ultimate goal of pure devotion service, it's a foregone conclusion. Now what is in our control is how long. Prabhupada would say, this lifetime. Perfect your life, go back to Godhead. Right? May or may not happen. Maybe next lifetime. Maybe 100 lifetimes. That's in our hand. But the transition from Mishra Bhakti to Shuddha Bhakti is inevitable. By being sincere, we can accelerate it, and by being less serious, it can take more time. There is this verse in the 10th canto, 14th chapter, Tatenukampam susmekshamano. Beautiful verse. Tatenukampam susmekshamano bhunjan evatma kritam vipakam. Which basically says that a person who stays steady in bhakti while tolerating the various reverses, whether it's by the mind or by the outside, it becomes his birthright to acquire Krishna's personal association. So that is our mood. That is our hope.
Prabhuji, I have one question.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for encouragement. We thought we'd never go there. In a way, like what stage we are.
Yeah.
Well,
So like regulative principle we do, but still like we are like
No,
still we feel that the regulative principle are the guidelines through which we can stand for bhakti, but still we are not following it 100%. I would say like we are like to some person, but we are not that much faithful.
Part of it is humility, that it's not expected of a devotee to make this, that Krishna says that if you execute bhakti, then it's your birthright. So the devotee does not reciprocate by saying that now I'm a devotee, it's my birthright, because the nature of devotee is to be humble. But also Prabhupada gave the example covers everything. Just staying alive in bhakti. That's it. We don't have to do a lot. Just staying alive in bhakti. That will guarantee our success.
Listening to your lectures.
Our association with each other.
Yes.
So probably I have one question. So probably I think my video is not on.
Sure, Dava
Can you,
Prabhu.
yeah, so I have one question. So how do you, what if there is a person, I'm not sure if that's defined a devotee, but if a person doesn't have a deities, installed at home and doesn't have a deities home, however that person, does charitable, pious activity by building temples or contributing towards, society, and then the person doesn't have doesn't do consistent, doesn't have a time to chant at home as well. Would that person be considered, as a devotee who is, building temples? Or how would you define that, and what kind of bhakti would that be?
Thank you, Prabhu. So, uh, so activities that are there to help people through charity or through shramdan, which is person giving their effort, their body or their opulence or the words. So they are in the category of piety. So when people do pious activities, then they get material opulences out of that. Not necessarily this is not in the category of even Mishra Bhakti, because it's just pious activities. It's mode of goodness. They are sattvic, they are charitable, kind, tolerant, all the qualities that Krishna talks about of the people in the mode of goodness. And the result of the activities in the mode of goodness is knowledge, happiness, elevation to higher planets, increased opulences. So these are all material reciprocations that come and go. One may get elevated to a higher planet and then fall down again. One may get wealth and lose that wealth again. But if one is performing devotional service even sporadically, so it's called bhakti that is ghantaral. So sometimes it is more concentrated and sometimes it is less. Maybe some days the person chants and some day the person does not. Some day the person may chant more rounds, some day the person may chant less rounds. But as long as the conception of that person is that I have to one way or the other render service to Krishna. So the person is in the category of bhakta. Rupa Goswami actually says that even if a person is chanting once the name of Krishna with this conception, he should be considered to be a devotee. He's giving a very liberal understanding. But the point that he makes is that with this understanding, with this conception, that conception is very difficult. So it's a theoretical premise. It's like saying that by using extremes to make an example, that when a person has that conception, he will not be satisfied by chanting only once. If a person has a conception, he will only be satisfied if he chants on a regular and a steady way, or renders bhakti in some other way. So, because bhakti is what we do out of bhakti is secondary to why we do it. So the why part is important. So that's why Srila Prabhupada would call this Krishna consciousness. That what you do is not that important as to why you do it. So if a person is chanting every day, but he's chanting with the conception that this is going to improve my health, it's a different conception. It's not a devotee conception. But if a person is chanting sporadically, but with the understanding that this is my way to worship Krishna, I'm not there, but this is what I can offer, that person is considered to be a devotee.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Amit here. People,
I heard you, Mataji. I don't see you.
I,
Okay, but I can hear you.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
I heard your answer to Lalji Prabhuji, Sunil Prabhu, and Dhaval Prabhu. I'm feeling this is a comment, maybe. We are nowhere. Especially me, I'm nowhere. Like we are doing all those things like rituals, like we need to do. We got so much things. Like suppose I am thirsty, water is in front of me, but I don't have a bowl to or in a glass to collect it. So similarly, Prabhuji, like even deities or demigods or say, so many times it happens like ritual. We have been doing since birth. We have seen our parents doing. Even now, there is no expectation. But at the same time, we are doing this. We can't stop. Maybe there is a lack of understanding Krishna. Of course, there is. And my question, like this is my comment, but at the same time, my question is how to pray, or maybe how to get at least to a point where the minimum thing we can do, the chanting with good mind, or maybe even offering prasad. Whenever I am offering, I don't think that is 100% from my heart. Like, oh Lord, you accept it. I have prepared with all the devotions. Every time, all anarthas. Even we are in, provided everything. We know Prabhupada came, all the books are there, temples are there, lecture you are giving, and lots of lecture, but not able to perform anything.
Thank you, Mataji. It's a good question, and I think I'll give you my thoughts. And because we are in the Association of Practicing Devotees, I would like to hear other thoughts also. So, bhakti in the current day and age, it flows from the process of chanting. That is the root of bhakti, at least in the age of Kali, in all times, but especially in the age of Kali. Like Kalera dosh nide rajan astya ek mahaguna kirtana deva krishnasya muktasang param brajet. There are so many falls in this age of Kali, so many falls in the people in the age of Kali. But there is one redeeming quality, which is the emancipating effect of Krishna's name. So you're right. There are so many angas of bhakti that we are aspiring to do. When we do deity worship, then the injunction is that we should consider the Lord to be sitting there. Offering is at a much later stage. When we are cooking prasadam, the understanding is that we should be cooking for the pleasure of our deities. But what is the process by which we cook? We get up in the morning and we say that today we would like to eat aloo paratha. And then we make aloo paratha and say that, okay, God Nitai, here's aloo paratha for you.
Yeah, true.
Right.
Sometimes realizing, this is, I did a mistake, my offense. Now, why I should honor? First of all, my deity should honor. Then, but this is a thought. But most of the time, it first comes to mind that okay, today we want to prepare that. No, maybe everyone will like. That should not be.
It should not be, but it is. And one acts according to one's adhikar. One acts according to one's level of advancement. So what will take us from one level to another is our nishtha in chanting. So that is
again every day when I'm supposed finishing around, struggling, finishing, I'm just praying. To be honest, I'm praying. Krishna, just I prayed for your satisfaction. Give me intelligence so that I can improve my quality of chanting. For next day, same repeat. I'm also complaining. Yesterday I have requested you, prayed you, at least little bit improvement. But maybe I need to give more effort or something. But that is fact, Prabhuji. Every day struggling.
True. True. It is a bit of a push-pull, Mataji. that we pray to Krishna and then we endeavor a little hard also. So both goes hand in hand. So we don't raise our hand and we say that, my chanting is what it is, Krishna, it's upon you to improve it. But we also realize that it is too much for us to take on by ourselves. So we pray and then we chant, and even though we don't realize it, but there is continuous improvement that is happening. That is the beauty of the process of bhakti. That maybe you cannot see the difference between yesterday or last week or last month, but I can guarantee you that you can see the difference between 5 years ago and 10 years ago. Why? Because there is improvement. That is happening.
Yeah, very slow.
Prabhu, one request is there. Sorry, Mataji.
It's okay.
Hey, Prabhu. Yeah, right now, because you might have attended like japa retreat and all, we need this. We feel if you get those tips like Gurujan Prabhu's 9 keys, that book is also there. If you have some kind of 2-3 lectures on that one, especially with japa, to improve, to again, emphasize us to chant more mindfully, with again more attentively, mainly. That's where the problem comes in japa.
Thank you, Prabhu. It's an excellent suggestion. We will definitely work towards that.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Bol, Priyanka.
Thank you for the reassurance and making us feel hopeful about, there is a slim possibility of some, progress. But on the same lines of what Amrita Mataji was speaking and you were answering, it's probably a realization or a question. I'm not really sure at this point. But how appropriate is since now we have deities, installed deities, how appropriate it is, or I guess I'm trying to understand, is it even right to feel guilty when you don't serve them in the right mood? Because I have these realizations, especially when in connection with prasadam, there are times where I'm not serving elaborate prasadam, and then this might sound very childish and naive, but then when we are actually bathing the deities, I sometimes feel that the clothes are fitting loose. And I feel that, oh my God, and that, I'm sorry, it really sounds very silly, but then I feel very guilty and I'm like, oh, because I'm not feeding them enough, maybe, I don't know, something just happens in my brain and I'm like, no, I should. And then the next day I'm all making elaborate prasadam, I'm trying to give them a fresh breakfast, I'm trying to give them some lunch, especially, if it's a weekend, and then I'm trying to make hot, fresh dinner. So when I do that, and when I'm not, of course, and that is not something sustainable for me with my current lifestyle. So how do they perceive these actions?
So I think I can give a more specific answer and a generalized answer. So when you offer something to the deities, then the offering goes up the parampara, the disciplic succession. Right? So let's assume you have offered pakoras to the deities, right? So Prabhupada looks at it and says that maybe chutney is good for it. So he adds chutney to it. It goes to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and he says, this is spicy pakora, let me add some different kind of pakoras. So by the time it goes to Srimati Radharani, she's getting all these offerings for Krishna, and then she makes it complete and gives it to Krishna there. Because otherwise, why will Krishna eat our offering? He's getting much better food in Vaikuntha, right? He has much better cooks there, right? But essentially, our offering is our request for mercy. That this is my imperfect attempts to please the Lord. Please, by your mercy, make it perfect. So that gives us some sustenance. That, yes, it's sweet that you're thinking your deities are going because you're offering them. The pujaris in Juhu temple, they used to have the same realization. The Radha Ras Bihari there. So initially the Juhu temple was a very, it was, at that time Juhu was marsh. It was all reclaimed land over there, and very few people came. But Srila Prabhupada established the deity even before he established the temple over there. Just a hut over there. He established Radha Ras Bihari there. And the later on pujaris, they found out that the dresses that were offered to Radharani earlier on, they would not fit her anymore. Because then she was really getting very minimal prasadam. And later on, of course, now they get really opulent prasadam. So it's a sweet mood of a devotee. The Lord reciprocates to that. From a more general perspective, guilt is good or bad depending on how you process it. So Srila Prabhupada would say that the quality of a Shudra is that he laments but does not do anything about it. The quality of a Brahman is that when he laments, he works to rectify it. So guilt should not become a hindrance in our devotional life, but it should become a catalyst to do more. That is the proper position of guilt. Because I've heard some people saying that I can't serve the Lord, so I won't serve the Lord. Or, what can I offer to Krishna? He has everything. So it's just a way to recuse yourself from establishing this mood of service. Ultimately, what's going on in their mind is, I don't want to serve the Lord.
I don't want to serve.
Right. So they do that. In devotees who are practicing, sometimes guilt also becomes an anchor. That my chanting is not good, so let me not chant. My deity worship is not good, so let me not have deities in my house. I can't understand what the scriptures say, let me not read it there. So, Prabhupada would say mood of a devotee is that, now we can't become perfect in everything, right? I can't become a perfect singer, how much I aspire to become, right? And Indulekha will always dress the deities much better than I do. But doesn't mean that I don't dress the deities. Right.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hari Bol Akshay.
So this is about being judgmental or being liberal minded. Prabhupada, when we read his purports, he uses such strong words, like he calls like materialists or just people in general, dogs, hogs, rascals. But then when we see his pastimes, his interactions with general public when he was, I recently learned some of his pastimes that he was so liberal, so sweet, like not even spiritual or there was nothing Krishna conscious in his discussions with absolute materialists. So he was so liberal. And you mentioned about Rupa Goswami also, like we read about their pastimes. They used to go and have all kinds of varied discussions with everyone in the village and the city. So, and you also mentioned, Prabhuji, that, when we start being judgmental, that starts clouding our bhakti also. So, Prabhuji, how do we constantly meditate on being liberal or guard against that? Any practical tips?
Two things, Prabhu. One is that it is good to be judgmental to yourself and liberal to others. So we are generally the other way around. So we are liberal to ourselves and judgmental to others. So that's why I was appreciating Priyanka's realization that, she's being tough on herself. Or, the point that Amrita Mataji was saying, that what more can I do there? So if one is more looking inwards, then this propensity to look outwards will automatically get mitigated. If you think that I have 1,000,000 miles to go to improve my chanting, you will never criticize anybody else who's not chanting. You'll say that at least this person is not doing offenses. Every day morning I do 16 rounds of offenses, right? So by being more, and of course you don't be that hard on yourself that it drives you out of bhakti, but the mood of being more critical to one's own self. The point that you made about Srila Prabhupada is very nice, because Prabhupada exemplified that mood. He would sleep for 2 hours a day, but he wouldn't go around saying, if you look at a lot of the conversations, he would look for excuses to glorify the other person. That, do you do this? This is very nice. This is very nice. You are a scientist, very good. Very good. And then he would try to give them Krishna consciousness. Because it's the art of preaching. It comes from a platform of genuine love. That Prabhupada genuinely had a lot of love and affection for everybody. Like, he did not say that, okay, this person is a Christian, so he's probably going to hell or something like that. He would say, very good, you're worshipping your Lord Jesus Christ. You worship him even more sincerely. He would glorify them in that way. So these two things, just being more introspective, and also looking for opportunities or excuses to find aspects to glorify others. Generally speaking, now this I'm talking from this is not Shastric, I'm talking from a more experiential level. Devotees are very kind to people in general. They are very hard on themselves, and they also tend to be very hard on other devotees. So if somebody, you're sitting in a temple and chanting, somebody comes from the outside and says that, I'm beginning to chant 1 round now and then. I say, oh, very nice, this is really good, I really appreciate you're chanting 1 round now and then. After some time, another devotee comes and says, I'm chanting 16 rounds, but my quality of chanting is not good. I say, what nonsense are you talking about? Why can't you improve your quality of chanting? This is all on the mental platform. Prabhu, you should do better at it. So it's just a result of the fact that it's an immaturity in bhakti, but developing this mood of introspection and developing this mood of being liberal to everybody, that will show in our interactions. Prabhupada would say that even if you get another person to appreciate you, that is preaching. That person's bhakti has started. That just the person at your workplace, he says that, Akshay is so calm. I don't see him agitated. I see that he's always smiling. He doesn't know Krishna, he doesn't know you're a devotee, but just the fact that he's appreciating you, that starts his bhakti. That is itself a very potent form of preaching.
I should appreciate my husband more often, I guess.
That would help.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
And for the answer too.
Hare Krishna, Bhari Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhu, for the wonderful realizations and elaborations and all the Q&As. So, Prabhu, I had a question when you were explaining the different categorizations. So, for the first and the second categorization, you mentioned those who are not taking to devotion, or those who are not taking in full spirit and serving Devi gods more. The solution probably is knowledge that they may lack, and because of which they're not able to do. And then you explained a little bit later in the other categorizations, wherein even a most devoted person who had the complete knowledge may fall down. And Prabhuji, I've read that too much of knowledge sometimes create problems in bhakti, and there has to be, I don't know where should we draw the line, but end of the day we are human with this small mind, flickering mind, and it goes in there. And so I know we are at a very small stage right now, we are not there at all, but is there a guard against doing too much of empirical study, which may, halt or bring our bhakti a little bit down?
Thank you, Prabhu. So I think when we start pursuing knowledge for the sake of knowledge, so that is a red flag. Right? If you're pursuing knowledge to increase our conviction that yes, somebody asked me to chant, I'm chanting, but what's the big thing about chanting? And then you read Padma Puran, you read books on the art of chanting, where there are so many scriptural injunctions that are given to explain the position of the potency of the holy name. That is gyan, that is increasing your sankalp. It's enhancing your conviction there. However, when somebody is pursuing knowledge for the sake of knowledge, like let me know all this just because of jigyasu, just because I'm curious, or at a lower platform is people who pursue knowledge to show off, that let me learn all these shlokas and next time I'm in a conversation, then I will recite all these shlokas end to end, or let me read these 4 different commentaries and next time there's a discussion, I will quote all the 4 different commentaries. So one of the offenses to bhakti actually is reading too many books, which is a little different from one of the recommendations in bhakti is to read books. And that's the fine line. That when one reads too many books, then one basically develops a speculative mind there. So at least as followers of Srila Prabhupada, the safe zone for us is Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada has given us sufficient books to develop our conviction and also to not make us too much go into this area of speculation. Prabhupada used to be asked so many questions, and sometimes he would go deep and answer them, but a lot of time he would give generic answers. Like people would say, what happens in the spiritual world? What does it mean that a particle of sand is alive over there? Does the sand talk to other particles of sand? And what does it mean that Krishna's clothes are alive? Do they wash themselves? So people would just ask all these questions, and then Prabhupada would he would comment saying that he would say inquiry but no progress, because the purpose of asking all this was not to increase one's shraddha or nishtha. The purpose was just intellectual gymnastics. So when we see that happening in our case, then it's probably important for us to take a step back and question why why we are doing it. Other than that, it's also swabhav. Like some people, they draw more sustenance from knowledge. But as long as it is a supporting anga, as long as it is there to nourish bhakti, I know there are people who will get up in the morning and before chanting, they will read a little bit of Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or listen to a lecture. But the purpose is that it increases the quality of chanting. So it's as a supporting anga. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. I think that makes sense. I was also thinking in my mind while you were explaining that gradually start from basic, like we see, right? There are books recommended at initial level, then we make more advancement. I think that will also help us absorb more. Otherwise, I think our mind is very insignificant and it may not absorb a lot, and sometimes it can confuse. That's where I think the problem starts to happen, where we understand a little bit too much without knowing the basics better.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. So,
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
so I'm just being cognizant of time here. So we have to chant around, and we have 2 Narsingadev prayers. So we'll continue the discussion next week,
Sure, Prabhuji. Sure,
and we can chant 1 round, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya